ba, ba, ba. Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care anyway, guys? It's a Wednesday, and we're playing a team called Dundee. It feels like Groundhog Day, doesn't it? But welcome. Fist bumps to everyone on arrival. If you're watching this after we've been live, thanks to everyone that's tuning into the stream, into the preview we've got for Celtic at home to Dundee in a midweek fixture. And I always keep meaning to refresh and update this statistic, but I heard it like literally years ago at this stage. But midweek in the league, we've won like every game for the past like 15 years or something crazy like that. So it's set to be a good one. We're right off the heels of a January transfer window as well, where we had a nice wee press conference from the man himself, the manager of Celtic, of course, Brendan Rodgers. And this press conference, like sometimes on the channel, we've done some like watch alongs. I'm not really going to do that with this one because it's been out for a day. It's been very much well documented, all of the manager's comments and quotes that have came out of it. It's already reached 30,000 views, which for a Celtic video is pretty big, to be honest with you. And, you know, you've probably all heard the main kind of talking points or whatever in it. I do have it kind of locked and loaded, like you can see here, in case there is anything we want to digress into, because the manager left a lot of... I don't really know how to put this. Do you say he left a lot of room to read in between the lines, or do you say that he didn't leave much room to read in between the lines? Because he was quite clear on... Like, they weren't oblivious to the fact that they needed a striker. They wanted to replace Kyogo. It wasn't a surprise. Nothing shocked them. You know, he said all the, he didn't deny anything. And he kept, I think his actual quote was, "They're not hiding," which is probably a nice way of summing it up also. But, like it was quite, I don't know if it was, I don't really know how to take it, to be honest with you. I think it's obviously like good that we're getting some sort of level of honesty. But I'm also kind of looking at this and I'm seeing what's happening across Europe as well. And I'm seeing lots of teams in Italy and Spain in particular, where after the January transfer window, we get like an actual press conference about the activity in the window. And this was more of a pre-match press conference. And we kind of have the back end of this press conference, maybe, I don't know, the last, what's that really, like 4 or 5 minutes at the most. There's maybe a little bit of stuff on the actual game itself, but otherwise it's all kind of transfer related. And Rodgers is only going to say so much. He doesn't want to pin the blame on the recruitment team. And again, I think we all kind of get that, don't we? So it would be nice if someone from the recruitment team could just have a wee press conference, just have a wee meeting, have a little, and it could be anything they want it to be. It could just be, 3 questions from a few outlets, or I don't know, whatever, a fan forum, could be any number of different things. But this is becoming more of a norm where fans do get a good level of transparency with the media coverage itself. I was looking earlier today, just to give you an example, right? Because I did a video on the channel, I can't remember when, right? But I was chatting about the sort of players I would be hopeful Celtic would be looking at. And I think this might have even been before Kyogo. I can't remember when the video was. But one of the players, if we were looking at forwards, that I thought would have been a good player to have a wee peek at this game week was a guy called, I can't say his first name, he's Greek, right? But his name's Devikas, right? And he has just left Celta Vigo to go to, here it's here. He's just left Celta Vigo to go to Como. And that had a bit of a chain reaction across the market with Belotti moving to Benfica, and there's a few other bits and pieces. But this was one of the first kind of press conferences from a sports director that I was checking out today. And he's just chatting about all the business that they had, interest on players that didn't go anywhere, etc., etc. And then when you go in and actually look at it, this is just the way, like this is, as you can see, a normal press conference, and the guy goes on, this is all translated from English. You can read it if you're so interested in Celta Vigo at your own discretion, right? But when it came to the actual Devikas part, the actual part I was interested in is the speed that this all get done at was like very, very quick, and Brendan Rodgers, again, it was something that he highlighted in the press conference himself, where like, there's no excuse to be had here with January's a tough month to do business. The market is completely different to when that kind of cliche became a thing, because every team is chasing PSR, FFP. Everyone is trying to cash in on a player at some level of a high. And, it's a it's a food chain, like that's the way that the football transfer market kind of works, So just interesting that Brendan's fielded so many questions on this, been quite open, but there is only a level he can go to. It feels like as the manager, as the coach, because he's now talking about developing the squad that's here. And we'll look at the squad again. We kind of talked on this a little bit yesterday before we come in to actually preview and try and predict the starting 11 for Celtic versus Dundee, score predictions and all that other good stuff that we normally do. It's quite a tight turnaround this week for content, which is why we're doing a few more things live, just because it saves the production time of recording and editing and publishing later and all that kind of stuff. So if you are enjoying the lives while you're here live, please do hit the like button. Lets me know that this is a good idea, and lets YouTube know we're having a good time, and maybe we'll find some more Jungle Gyms to come and hang out with us in the live chat today. We recently broke through 10,000 subscribers. We are flying towards 18,888, and we cannot do that without your support, guys. So if you are enjoying the content, please do hit subscribe for more. And we've had a bunch of content come out over the last couple of days. It's still good to be watched. It's not like perished with going out of date or anything like that in terms of reactions, summaries, and all that good action. But yeah, so I quite enjoyed the press conference. I quite enjoyed everything Brendan had to say. It was quite. I'm always just. I don't. As twice I've been close to saying the word refreshing. I don't know if it is refreshing, but it's good at least. It's admirable that he's just like telling us without explicitly telling us. Like we went for these things, we wanted these things, and without going into details, they didn't happen. Now we do need some details, and as you can see from what other teams do in the continent, in Spain and Italy in particular, like I've already kind of highlighted, you get the people who are accountable for these things to talk to the fans, to talk to the media, and it's quite normal. It's not a thing where it's not like a witch hunt thing or you're hauling someone over the coals or anything like that. It's football, it's sport, and it's why we have these press conferences pre-match. The very last question, and this is always one of the elements of the press conferences I'm always the most interested in, but genuinely, like the last thing in it.
Time. Obviously, deflected goal comes in, but we got to deal with it in a different area of the pitch, and then there's no drama, and then the third one from a corner. So
must literally be the last 10 seconds. Let me know if you can hear the audio, by the way, just to make sure.
We were soft in our defending, so very easy game to analyse. I can absolutely guarantee you we won't be that soft again tomorrow.
Thank you. Everyone available?
Yes.
15 seconds to go.
Ones that are fit are.
15 seconds to go. Is everyone available? And then it's a wee joke. Everyone who's fit. Good one, Brendan. And there's only 5, so like 10 seconds. I said the last 4 minutes to be generous earlier, but literally the last 5 seconds of the press conference. And fair play to Brendan for kind of handling all this. Audio was clear. Love it. It's just sometimes when it's like a desktop thing or the YouTube, sometimes the streaming software, you need to change some settings or something like that. So it's nice to hear that's all well and good. And like I say, thanks to everyone that is joining us live and loud. The likes are flying in, guys. If you've got this in your pocket, if it's in your phone, take your phone in your pocket, smash the like button, please. It does make a big difference to helping the channel. If you're on desktop, just flip the tabs, just change over for 2 seconds, hit like, and help support the show. Because, yeah, when we were on yesterday, the last place we'd left off was having a look at the squad depth before hearing from Brendan. So we're having a look at how the squad currently sits now. And we had some really interesting polls go out where we're chatting about, would you rather have the front line we have now or the front line that we had pre-January? And it was a very tight poll. But then it was just in favour of pre-January. It was like 55-45, maybe 53-47. It was like super tight. And then we did another poll where we said, in your overall taking of the squad, is it stronger pre-January or post-January, or is it net zero? Because like when you do kind of break the system of the squad down, like Murray for Welsh, Schlupp for Valley, there's like it's still like in a 1 in, 1 out situation for the most part, although the head count has went down. That kind of like just underbelly of the squad has been kind of weeded, or not weeded, but yeah, kind of thinned out, as it were. And like really, like the squad, for all intents and purposes in the league, like I said it yesterday and I'll say it again, like there's every chance in the world that Jeffrey Schlupp is the best left back in Scotland in like 3 games time from now. So welcome aboard, Jeff, and all the rest of it. But it is untested, I think, for the most part, in terms of like, or maybe not. Yeah, I suppose you could. I don't think I'm going to put him into that category, of course, but the likes of Murray, even adding Sinisalo into that equation, I suppose, Cummins, Kenny, Yang. And then between McKeown and Bernardo, these are guys that are like always quite fine, aren't they? But sometimes they're match winners. but it's like how often and the frequency of it, that kind of thing, is maybe lesser than their counterparts in terms of Hatate and Engels as a pair. Necessarily. So the squad, like the first 11, is still in like a pretty good nick. You will notice this is kind of a first 12 because I just really don't know what to do with the front line right now. How do you decipher who is the, like, right now? Adam Ida is undroppable. He had a good press conference as well yesterday where he was chatting about, you know, like not really being bothered about the transfer business. It's been on already. He's just focused on doing him. He's quite happy that it's like some young up and coming kids behind him as well. So, like we mentioned on the stream yesterday before all the press conferences, like training for the strikers, man, should be mad competitive right now, like in a big way. And Ida is grabbing the shirt with both hands right now and making it his own. So Dyson feels undroppable. How do you have Jota in the team and not start him? How do you have Kuhn in the team and not start him? And there's not going to be a change of shape. There is just not going to be. The only change you can hope for, because Brendan actually in that press conference, maybe it's a little bit of a preview towards the Dundee match, but he was asked about Dyson through the middle, and Brendan again was very much more open and receptive to that idea now. Like you'll remember when we were chatting about this last week, it felt like when it was brought up, Brendan was like wanting to shut that down. Like, no, we still need another forward. Don't let Michael Nicholson hear that, guys. Don't let them know that we can get away with it, or we could maybe just about make it all work with what we've got here. We need more. We need an extra player, and we certainly still do. And that's the primary frustration everyone has, whether it is a direct replacement for Kyogo, and then you've got the strength of, wow, Dyson and Jota on one, and then someone who's replacement Kyogo level, competitive here with Ida, and maybe like Kvitsgarden maybe would have offered, has that dual versatility of also being competition for Kuhn, perhaps. If he was to go off the boil and Ida was hot on form, you had the ability to put somebody else out here. So I think that's the same sort of Dyson Maeda versatility that we now probably have. I think Rodgers wants that with forward number 5, if we're kind of still categorizing the players like that. And in any case, you know, for the time being, like, I don't know, like, does he just lean into this? Because if you do think about, like, he was very outright in the conversation we had when I asked him the question about Kyogo playing out wide, and I got my question across quite poorly. But his answer in response to that was like Kyogo was his perfect striker. Like, it was actually a really good quote about the profile of Kyogo and how he likes it and all the rest of it. And really, in that press conference that we've not listened to today that came out yesterday, he kind of does basically say he's better than Kyogo. Like, he does. I don't know if I can go and find that audio clip. I maybe should have had that one lined up, but he does say like his penetrating runs were the best in the squad, and he's got that finisher's instinct. And we all know he passes more than Kyogo. And yeah, like Rodgers kind of alluded to, he maybe doesn't have that trickery and that guile, and he maybe doesn't have that X factor that someone like a Kuhn or a Jota has. But even what Kyogo mainly offered in this position, and an underline, bold, italic, mainly, is the mega press. Like, for the last little while his goals have been like few and far between, although they've been big goals, he still kept them like prime stake, you know, prime timing. So he still has had that, but Dyson's top scorer is top scorer now, isn't he? So, like, this could just be Jota on the left, Kuhn on the right, Dyson through the middle. It could be OP. And, you know, that just puts Adam Ida back to square one in a way. And, you know, really there's nothing lost for him, is there? And in terms of the squad, like I said yesterday, like, is that front line any weaker? Like, when everything's up to speed? Now, when we come into tonight, that's not going to be the case, of course. Midfield might be chopped up a little bit as well, because Raith Rovers at the weekend is a vital game. It's a cup, you know, the treble is a firm thing. We do not want any banana skins. I don't think Rodgers will overlook that game in any sense, but there is no getting away from the fact that there will be rotations in that ahead of Bayern Munich at home. And we've got the defence to obviously contend with now, with Jeffrey Schlupp coming into the building as well. Dyson Maeda obviously suspended for the Bayern Munich game as well. So it maybe feels that for the actual match we've got coming up, it's a little bit easier because Jota's just in the building to maybe imagine, like, this is everyone who will be in contention for the match. Let me just catch up with the chats. A bunch of these are coming in now. Thanks very much. Fist bumps to all of these on arrival. Please do hit the like button. It just helps YouTube know we're having a good time, and maybe we'll find some more Jungle Gyms to come and hang out with us as we get set for Dundee versus Celtic, or Celtic versus Dundee tonight, off the back of Brendan Rodgers' press conference yesterday. And we'll get some of you guys up on the screen and involved as well. AJ, good to see you, mate. Rodgers miffed, but he knows he can't afford to impact his mood. And yeah, like, I really do, like, if I was in that position, like, I would be the exact same as Brendan, where, like, you just get on with it, man. Like, the players are good enough to do really what is at hand. And, spilled milk, what can you do about it now? Windows closed, deals aren't done. What's the grief of, why you review it, you improve, you move on. Like, again, I'm with you all the way on that. Maeda is a backup striker. Yeah, maybe first choice, but Goni is Ursel. I don't know how to say that. Sorry. Maybe becomes number one. Big Ida will get it. I think Ida is going to go on a tear. Like, I think Ida is going to start putting goals away for fun. Let's see how Bayern Munich goes. But like, I think Brendan again kind of highlighted, like, there's no break, there's no rest here. Adam Ida is going to be playing, and I think he has the shirt quite clearly until he doesn't score. And what Rodgers is probably half banking on with this a lot, or not half banking on, that's malicious to kind of say that was part of the manager's intention, right? But what is maybe because we do have Jota coming in who is rusty. He's got that ring rust, but he's not quite at his, and he looked great when he came on the other day, don't get me wrong. And he'll be registered for the Champions League. The registration window for that is the 6th of February, which is tomorrow. But he won't start Dundee tonight, Daizen Maeda will start on the left. We'll have Ida up here. And for the next couple of games, Rafe, Bayern at home and away, and whatever game is in between all that, you can kind of slowly bring Jota back into the fold. And then really from that point onwards, if Ida gets a game or in that spell, doesn't hit the back of the net, isn't impressive, as Jota then looks to get a starting berth, you then have got an easy kind of centre forward competition situation. So Ida is going to need to be on it all the way. I expect Kenny to be like the super sub for him. I don't think Kenny's getting a chance to start in this game. Same as Yang, of course. And like I say, I do think Jota is much more likely from the bench than from anywhere else. So the front line probably quite picks itself quite easily for this one. The midfield is different, but because as we know with Luke McKowen, he plays against every team called Dundee, so he should be on to play this one, which would pop him on the right side of midfield. And I think, having not started the last game, that would probably put Arne Engels over here in that effective kind of front position of that left attacking midfield spot. But I feel that Hatate is probably similar to Ida. The Rodgers kind of attitude that we got in that press conference is probably going to be kept in the deep end. I can see something like Bernardo for McGregor maybe happening for the Rafe game, maybe not for Dundee tonight. But I think it's quite a tight midfield. McGregor is going to play this one, of course. And again, I think Dundee won't be taken lightly. And yeah, a lot of love for Ida in the chat as well. Brown Warrior 119, good to see you. Hi, Quinny. Did you not find Brendan's comments about Maeda a bit confusing yesterday? He bigged up Maeda's pressing, then asked about how replacing the 16 goals from out wide. Yeah, because he is like... So what I kind of took that as is he was kind of then slipping back into the way he's like pushing this internally. So you've got to imagine, like, if they're saying we don't need another player, we have Daizen Maeda, you bring Jota in, blah, blah, blah. And if he's saying, no, well, Dyson scored 16 goals from out wide, is Jota going to do that? Or, you've still lost those goals into the equation. Because when Brendan's also got to, I suppose he's got to make a case for the money to be spent, is the way I kind of read into that. And that's like justification for like, yeah, as well as like Dyson is very good at all that, you are going to take away 16 goals from wide. That's just a fact. There has been no other left winger. Dyson has been ever present in this team. Yang has been nowhere near the team. He's been in there by, circumstance. And James Forrest has been like ever present from the bench, has rotated in and done okay. But Dyson has played every game, and especially on the left. And that's with these options of versatility already being at the disposal. So Rodgers obviously really likes having him out there. Does then kind of add a little bit of the question mark over the whole Jota thing a little bit then as well, doesn't it? If he is like so set on Dyson's going to play out here, because if Jota's then going to be eventually become super sub, like, I don't think we would be living in a bad world if that was the case. Very strong Celtic if that's what's going on, But I think that's just a little bit of what you maybe hear is a little bit of the remnants of the chat that they've been having internally from that. It's clear Brendan isn't given the finances. Yeah, I don't think he's got carte blanche to write the checkbook for himself. I made the joke when I seen the tweet of him like going to the airport or whatever, that he was away to get Dermot Desmond to get the password for the online banking. And I do think it's very much like committee based, where like you hear Rodgers talking about it already, where he's presented players and then they kind of go through it, and you feel that there's this like sort of constant committee level kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, where everything's always kind of up for, who they're discussing, different forward options, who is the top five, is there a new contender for the top five, is 3 of these guys actually moved on now and are off the table? It feels like there's a lot of those conversations actually going on all the time. And Yeah, I don't think like so. Eventually, like when it gets to the stage of like trying to buy someone, it's still in that kind of format where it's still like it's got to be him and the director, the recruitment guy's got to be on board with it, and you've got to get the finance guy on board with it, and then everyone puts their hands in the middle and goes, "Oh, hey, let's buy a guy," you know. And once they do that, they kind of sign off on it. Whereas, like, I think we would want and imagine in this situation for a primary position, a top target, a vital transfer, you give manager a bit more power here, you know. Guy's in the driver's seat. Guy's been getting like really like Brendan gets so much right, like so much right in game. Like and everything that's happened since he's came back, I really don't think he's put a foot wrong for the most part. I really struggle to think of anything. So yeah, you would like to think he gets that backing. And yeah, everyone's backing Ida tonight. Ida could get a hat trick tonight, no problem. McKeown for sure. Yeah, I think McKeown, he plays against every team called Dundee, doesn't he? Celtic will bring Bayern will bring the real game face to Celtic Park, not the hosting queue form. Would he dare start Schlupp? Now, I think Schlupp is 100% going to get minutes in this game, which is why he's on the board. When we come into defence, I'm going to delete Hatate from this one, and I'm just going to say that we get a rotation situation here where we bring in McKeown to play a team called Dundee, and we play Engels in this one. And then I think maybe for Rafe, maybe you play Engels, Hatate, and Bernardo, and you give McGregor the night off or whatever, maybe. But I think like Schlupp is going to come off the bench in this game. I think he could start Rafe with the preparation, and I don't want to ruin. There's a video that'll be out on the channel. So tomorrow we'll react to the game that we see today, and the day after tomorrow we'll have a video out of how we're going to beat Bayern. But I think Schlupp is going to be registered for the Champions League. Daizen Maeda is suspended. We do not want to play Yang again. And Jota, like who knows what kind of situation he'll be at. It's really Jota and Schlupp are the left wing options, really, when you look at that game. So I think like getting Schlupp Bayern ready is like a minor priority in the coaching and the training situation right now. And although we looked at Jeffrey Schlupp the other day when we signed him, and we looked at how he's been playing and whatever this year. Now, Jota hasn't been ever present himself. Okay, don't get me wrong on this one, right? And this is like I do take slight exception to the whole like. I know fair enough, like Jota's not at peak shape because he has been like idle for so long, right? Let's look at Jeffrey Schlupp quickly. We'll maybe double back to the Jota point in a second. But he's been on the bench. He's been match ready for Crystal Palace this whole time. You know, he's been in first team training. He's been given minutes when ready. So he's been like a coiled spring situation. Like he's ready to play. It's not like injury or anything like that. It's just a selection thing. So he is like somewhat like kind of half ready to go. He just probably needs a little bit incorporated into, because again, this is this season. Like how many appearances is that? It's enough, isn't it? But he needs to get fighting shape. You know, a little bit similar to Jota perhaps. But he is like, say he's not recovering. There's no damage goods situation here at all. So I do think Schlupp is semi-likely to. I think he's definitely set to debut. I think we'll get a debut for Schlupp. Very likely at left back. It could be really anywhere, especially when you see him in his interview talk about his own versatility at left centre mid. He did mention that more than once, and I think he quite enjoyed being centre mid because I think guys that like him that are like really like physically exceptional, they play all up a wing or are quite versatile in that sense. But sometimes it's big guys that just are really good in midfield, but they hate playing centre back, and the manager always sticks them centre back, and they hate it or whatever. But players like that always like being in midfield because midfield shows that you've got football IQ, you've got good technique, you've got good pass selection as well as being able to read some danger and whatever. Because midfield is the engine room; it's the heartbeat of the team. So I you know, like Schlupp will be fine. He's got every potential to be the best left back in the country in 3 games from now. So I think we are going to prep him for Bayern. He'll get a debut against Dundee. I think it will be from the bench. I think Taylor will start this one again. I think Ralston will return to the bench. Alistair Johnson will start again. And like again, the whole comment that we got from Brendan on Ida, I do think is rather telling. We have had a lot of games out with Vickers. He has, it felt like by choice, semi-choice at least, missed the Villa game. So I'm not expecting Scales to come in to start this one. I'm expecting it to be Trusty and Carter Vickers again. And the team probably just about looks like this for tonight, doesn't it? Probably mainly picks itself. But I do think like for Rafe, Scales could play that game. Ralston probably plays it. I don't know. But I think like we'll still play like the best front three we possibly can. And there'll be some other bits and pieces for it. But for tonight, I think this will be the team that we shape out with. And under the floodlights at home, like we'll be playing against a Dundee team that we can check out their predicted 11 as well. I normally like to put that onto the tactics board as well, but I don't want to be too kind of like looking at my keyboard and stuff for like 5 minutes as I'm kind of typing in Dundee player names. So I'll just go and get their predicted 11 that we've got for tonight. Yeah, there we go. And it's quite similar to what we've seen from Dundee over the last couple of games. Lyle Cameron has signed now for them, so it's going to be like Van Bronckhorst and Larson again, isn't it? You know, Lyle Cameron and Luke McKibben on opposite sides of the city. It's going to be a funny one in that sense. So he'll be out to impress. Certainly, he'll be looking to earn some fans to sell some shirts already. Trevor No Knees Carson looks like he's going to be in goals again. And Josh Mulligan returns to the Dundee squad. He was very good against us. I think he did miss the last match that they played with the Ginger Maeda, Simon Murray up front with Adewumi, who again looked pretty handy against us, didn't he? Mo Salah's always a big presence, big kind of stature of a guy in midfield. And the Garza guy, I think, was quite kind of ankle bitery, you know, in one of the games recently, if I remember properly. And Aaron Donnelly, it's the return match. Aaron Donnelly against Austin Trusty, who's going to psych who out at the corners, at the set pieces. That will be a little subplot, I think, for all of us in here. Sorry, guys, the chat is absolutely flying away. I go into kind of live stream recording mode sometimes. Could Schlupp play left wing against Bayern? Could he? I think he could. Don't want to give any spoilers away because it's maybe not quite as simple as that, but Schlupp is like sup. Schlupp. With that starting 11, that leaves a super strong bench. It does, you know, because you know, we've removed Jota from that equation. We've got Schlupp obviously come off the bench. We've got Hatate to come off the bench in that situation, as well as Bernardo, of course. Never mind factoring in Johnny Kenny rather than Yang. You know, Dyson will play 90 because Dyson's going to get next Wednesday off against Bayern. So Dyson will play 90 minutes for me. And we might even see him move into the centre as well in this match because Ida, like, I think he looked, how did we say it yesterday? It looked like he had a weight off his shoulders a little bit, but he knows he's not getting hooked at 60, 65, like guaranteed for Kyogo. That's just not happening. It's Kenny on the bench. Maybe he needs to worry about coming off for Jota and Dyson going through there, perhaps. But maybe that's more of a Kun move, perhaps, as well. There's more options that could happen here. And Maeda, I think, Ida, without having that pressure of like Kyogo's on the bench, he's definitely going to get half an hour today, no matter what I do. Like, if he gets to 70, 75 minutes, like, again, Ida's very hat-trick capable in a match like this, I think, can score all types of goals at home, under the floodlights, number 9 on his back, with this kind of support cast around. Because, again, at home in these types of matches is when Taylor is the wild card player, where he's just popping up in these little crazy zones that he's not meant to, that just gives other players time and space and opportunity to go on and do what they do. And Alistair Johnson, like, don't get me wrong, Ralston was great when he comes in, but Ralston's quite happy to kind of mirror the Taylor job. Ralston does make overlaps and underlaps when required, but he holds this kind of area of the pitch. Maybe because Ralston's like, you know, he's the bricky, you know, he's a bit of a wall, isn't he? So he kind of holds in this area quite nicely. Whereas Alistair Johnson, when he is kind of in that rest position, he's maybe a bit more like here, because he is a bit more willing, able, and on the edge of popping up in here, bursting down out this side. And again, I think like playing against that Dundee team, 3-5-2, 5-3-2, however it kind of pans out in action play, like Johnson's going to be quite effective in this. And, you know, we're getting quite excited about the play we're going to have on both wings. Even imagine for once we make the substitutions for 1 second here, and this is part of the reason I like playing about with this board with you guys when we're on doing this. If we put, as the game goes on, let's say, who knows what minute we get to, but as the game goes on, we've got Schlupp on the left, bombing up and down the line, Jota dancing, and just made Jota massive there. Is that normal sized? Feels a bit right, doesn't it? But yeah, Jota loves to dance along the lines, of course. He loves a bit of that, but he does love a bit of fullback support to give him that option to just come inside and maybe bash one from distance, as well as maybe try and slide a ball in down the channel. And if Dyson's running off the shoulder and popping up in wee pockets, like Dyson and Jota could have mad chemistry. We've never actually seen them two in the first time around really link up, because they're either on opposite ends of the pitch. And sometimes, you know, like you can get a ball where Jota comes in here and smashes it across and the opposite winger scores it, of course, you know, but this is much more direct, you know, kind of link up play between the two of them, and they might just hit it off big time. And that's Ida's biggest concern, isn't it? And Schlupp gives you a bit more of that traditional kind of, similar to Alistair Johnson. He's maybe more of a mirror image of Alistair Johnson and more of a precursor to a Kieran Tierney than Greg Taylor. So this is where it gets like kind of exciting to think about levels the team could go up, because for how amazing the team is doing right now, and Rodgers was quite quick to highlight that in the press conference of like, don't want to bring any grey clouds in the season. We're actually doing really good here. And there is still like years to go up. There's still new levels to kind of find here. And after tonight, there are only 18 games until the next transfer window. Yeah, it's one of those ones, isn't it? Where like we had the discussion yesterday, when we broke the squad into, is it stronger, net zero, or weaker? Like weaker won, but net zero got a significant amount of the vote as well. I forget how that voting actually broke down. To be honest with you, it might have been, I forget, but I think maybe weaker was like 43%. Net zero and stronger were like, had significant votes, but net zero was definitely second. I can't remember how it all broke down. But this is quite exciting to see. And the rest of the team at this stage will look probably quite different. Kuhn might not be on the pitch. It could be Yang. Or maybe not. Actually, Kuhn can maybe just play a bit, and then maybe, I don't know. There's a bit of minute management to go here, because we need to beat Rafe. We need to get that treble going. We want to win against Dundee, of course, get 13 points clear, like the manager was talking about in the press conference. And with the starting 11 that we had on screen a second ago, like we're definitely set up to do very well. And the way the bench is working now, we've not even brought Hatate off the bench either in this case as well. But could be like a real big, like, bang, confidence boosting performance. Fantastic match where, ahead of Rafe Rovers, we put a bit of fear into them that we are on top form. And again, maybe just give ourselves a kind of psychological head start in that game, which we don't need, but it's always nice to get that. You don't want another team having any sniff of, oh, well, Dundee got at them, maybe we can get at them, And then you go into Bayern with like, right, let's shoot our shot, And again, video day after tomorrow, we'll look at how I would do that, certainly. And look forward to seeing what your thoughts and feelings are. If I felt Ralston was coming inside more than AJ does, it's quite noticeable. Yeah, certainly. Like in terms of even just static off the ball, like he's always like way more like center circle based, isn't he? Ralston just more kind of wall. Whereas AJ, like he's always just a bit more on the cusp of being ready to get his ice skates on. That ice hockey player comes out and flies up the pitch, doesn't he? Ralston's got that, as we know, but it's more. Yeah, I think he quite likes that. I think it's a good role for him as well, because it's just blocking the defense. We need a bit of that, And when Taylor's away doing the crazy horse, just showing up wherever he fancies, a little bit of that is certainly welcome at times against a team that counterattacks and presses well, which Dundee do. Domestically, they're probably one of the best teams at doing that. And Dundee always give us a game. No two ways about it. So don't think anyone will be taking this lightly. And this is kind of close to full strength. Is it full strength? It probably is. Maybe I still have slight reservations that maybe Hatate could start this one. And what we get from Rodgers is much more of a midweek weekend situation, which we've seen him use before, where we play the Bayern Munich team against Dundee. Kinda. Obviously we don't have quite Jota at full speed. Schlupp only arrived last night. So with those kind of things factored into it, Dysamaida suspension, maybe the rest of the team is Bayern Munich, and then for Ross County, McCowan and Bernardo come in, Jota starts, maybe gets the first half, gets the first 60, and you do Schlupp maybe starts that as well. Maybe do a bit more of that for Rafe, where you do rotate, but it's rotating with real strength, with the guys like McCowan and whatever. That will definitely be very, very good. Red Scotland, good to see you in the chat, my man. Corporate negligence yet again. The manager is noticeably furious, and rightly so. He said they've had a month to get this done, so there's no point in me killing my enjoyment. Loaded comment. Yeah, and again, like the manager's been quite forthright, hasn't he? 5 more wins and we've won the SPFL. And yeah, like especially with them, like the Kvitsgarden thing is the most frustrating, because if we were actually in for him, like just get the deal like ready to cook, like it's done, and then flip the switch on it, just do the thing. If they start playing funny buggers, like there is only so much you can do to an extent, and you really need to know the level that if it's not been our like lack of initiative or lack of foresight or lack of basic, housekeeping, then we need to know that. But if it isn't, and that's truly the case, then we need to know what Bromby were up to. Did they just double the price? Did they just move the goalposts? We should know about this, when players sign in January window, they only really work for 3 months. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there, AJ. But it's good for bedding in process, you know. But you're right there in terms of graft, aren't you? What's your take on the squad strength since before the window to now? Do you think there's less? Well, we were speaking about that. We'll save this, won't we? We'll come back to it. We were looking at this earlier in the stream, so fist bump to everyone that's joining us at the moment. If you could hit the like button, just in case you're not aware, YouTube works on this thing called an algorithm, and if people hit the like button, they're involved in the live chat, they think this is a party, and we'll find some more Jungle Gyms to come and join us. So thanks to everyone that does get involved in the chat. It really does mean a lot. If you are active in the chat, please do smash the like button. If you're enjoying the content here anyway, smash the like button. It goes a long way to supporting the cause, helping the channel grow. We recently broke through 10,000 subs. We're charging on to bigger and better things, and we can't do that without your support. But this is the squad as it stands now, slobbering cabbage. If you missed kind of earlier part of the stream, I won't rehash too much of it because some of you will be watching this after we've been live and we've already been through it. But on a pure headcount basis, it's not really any different. There's been a lot of still one in, one outs. Schlupp for Valley, Murray for Welsh, Jota for Kyogo, different positions, of course. And then Kenny coming back into the fold is maybe Kenny and Cummings are extra heads, maybe technically speaking. But I think it's quite hard to define, you know, for the most part, to be honest with you. Valley didn't play much. How much will Schlupp play? Maybe Schlupp is just kind of quite immediate term because of the Dyson suspension, needing backup for Taylor. Taylor is out of contract, you know, so we've still got like no left back at the moment. They'll be here next year. Tierney is confirmed for next year, so that's fine and well and good. And I do believe actually Montgomery didn't actually go to St Johnstone in the end. Is that right? We said that yesterday, but I seen someone talking about it somewhere. I forget where. But is he maybe still in the building? So maybe he's going to be the next Murray or Welsh, you know. That's funny. Red Scotland. It does indeed. Rodgers is miffed by corporate negligence, a bit strong, but our footballing department simply. Yeah, I don't really know. Thanks very much, Stuart. Love to see it. Kvistgarden can be bought prior to selling Kyogo. That's certainly what a lot of people believe, isn't it? And I'm kind of on board with that. I mean, I look at what other sporting directors say across European football. Like, it's not as if people roll down the shutters and stop answering their phone or whatever. If it's the last minute, if you want a player and the terms are like something you can match, players move. You know, there's just no getting away from that. That's the reality. And there's not we don't understand how transfers work because other football directors are telling us how it works. We hear from other agents. We hear from other players in the aftermath of transfers. Scottish football is not, it's not a bubble. It's not an island. It's not any different to the rest of Europe. So it's a hard thing to really swallow, but Rodgers has got the right approach from it because working for the club and being involved in all the internal elements of it, you do need to work with people. There's a bit of give and take and all the rest of it, but Ralston will do for tonight. You think Ralston will play tonight? I don't think so, will he? What does Tisdale do? And I think like Tisdale's the guy, and this isn't the witch hunt thing. This isn't the thing I was kind of mentioning earlier when we looked at the other sporting directors of like the blame game or anything like that. But is he the guy that we should have a press conference from? And he goes, we had 5 targets. 2 of them are based in Europe. 1 was based here. The Kvistgarden was well reported. Or Yasater, if that's how you say it, he was down the road. We can tell you about these ones because they didn't materialize, and there was a few other ones that didn't pan out, but we'll revisit in the summer. You know, that kind of basic chat. We had an approach for Johnny Kenny, for Shamrock Rovers, but we couldn't let him go because we kind of need him now, it looks like, just as cover. That kind of chat, you know, is certainly needed. And is he the guy to do that? Because we're led to believe he's maybe the sporting director of it. 20 million spent on Barrowfield for a B team that delivers talented players to the English mercenaries. It doesn't make any strategic sense, Quinny. It does 1,000%, because that's one of the reasons we lose them. Quite simply, is infrastructure, is resources, materials, the ability to be developed, and on that level of the game. Because like we were chatting about yesterday, that is really what separates the English Premier League from every other team. Is on every measurable scale, everything is pushed to the absolute forefront of football science, sports science. And that all starts in the factories, you know, the youth development factories of England. You know, you hear it all the time in these documentary series that they do. You know, what is it? No Feast in Paradise or something like that. What's it called? You maybe know it. So there's 100%. Like, that is a retention tool and an actual, like, we'll actually be able to yield off it now as a result of it. So we'll actually be able to, because even Doak is better off from leaving Celtic, even just going to Liverpool. And to this point, he is further in his career than he would have been if he stayed here. I don't really have much of a doubt about that, to be honest with you, over the last couple of years, because at Liverpool, that kind of physical element, because we see it all the time with players that come through, and this is kind of, there's a little bit of luck that comes into it with some injuries, of course, right? But you even see it with Lennon Miller. If players get injured and they're not well looked after through rehab and through progression and all the rest of it, it can really stifle growth and can really stifle progression. And like Ben Doak being, like, think about how young he is. He was like 16, 17, proper, like, very important years for growth and all the rest of it. I don't think he would have got the same, even if you want to think of it as a kind of semi-medical context, I don't think he gets the same facilities or infrastructure at Celtic as you do at Liverpool. If you're a guy like that, that they've spent money on, that they've ID'd, that trains with the first team, etc., you know. And now he's playing first team football that, like, is not Champions League, obviously, but if you're playing first team championship, that's like a real good crash course into, you know, the top end of the game, because so many players come out of the championship amazing, you know, playing all sorts of leagues around the world. He was always going to do well, granted. Yeah, I'm with you on that. But again, you just don't know about the, you know, like if he did stay here, maybe he'd get injured a bit more. Maybe he wouldn't have quite, you know, like there's other measurables that come into it in terms of like the max pace he can get to, their jumping potential, and all these other things. Like, it's crazy, honestly. Like, it is like proper space age stuff. Probably the best way to sum it up. Would developing Doak at Celtic not have been better than signing? Yes, I agree. But we kind of need the Barrowfield project to do that. We need to have those facilities, that infrastructure, so that our players can see, well, I'll be in that cutting edge of sports science, like, kind of situation. It's why Borussia Dortmund are so good at taking these high level players from England and turning them into something. Because if you ever look at any documentaries on Borussia Dortmund, that is genuinely a laboratory. Like, their training facilities and what they do with their youth players, what they test them on, how they develop them, on their hand-eye coordination, everything is incredibly mental, and that's why players get developed to the full maximum of their potential there. So you need to have, as a club now, and in our kind of standing and the sort of level of player we want to develop, that's the sort of facilities you need to have, just point blank. You know, you then need to have the appropriate staff for that. You then need to, it's not just about having the tools, but you need then the right tradesmen to work with the tools, you know. So I think the Barrowfield stuff is like, the good thing about that stuff, right, is they can't spend that money twice, you know, from a Celtic point of view. We are a bit frustrated that some of that money doesn't come into the transfer market. That's what I always sense with these conversations. But you can only spend that money once, and it needs to be spent. There's some chat on Axom in the last week or so about the stadium and whatnot. I think it's maybe kind of wider in the Celtic community anyway, but that's why I've been picking it up. And that's all fair game as well. But again, that's money that can only be spent once, and that's quite like a monumental situation. And I think like the Barrowfield thing, we've seen how good Lennoxtown's panned out for the first team. Like, you do feel that the first team is kind of like levels up. You know, Rodgers said himself, normally when you're pitching Celtic to a player, it's not much of an issue. It just comes down to money and transfer fees, which is maybe our problem, that we're too kind of dogmatic within our constraint of, we're not breaking the protocol, you know. But yeah, come to Scotland and play against Broomhill, and then like, well, that's not really that important, to be honest with you. If because if at that age, where that becomes a problem, playing against Broomhill or whoever you want to say, see, as soon as that becomes a problem, that tells you that player is too good for that level. So then you've got a duty of care to do something about it. Do you put them in the first team? Do you put them out on loan? There shouldn't be anyone playing there that is like, or that is like an eye right situation, like what you're doing playing Ben Doak against, you know, I don't want to call any teams out, you know, but you know what I mean? Whatever lowland non-league team you want to mention, you move them out on loan. You have a proper, and that's what Darren O'Day's job is going to be. So he's only been in that position for like a year, or not even a year, probably at this point, maybe 8 months. And that's something that, again, we should see more of as time rolls on, as like Darren O'Day takes one of these guys and he goes, right, you're going to play for Raith Rovers for a year. We know the manager well, he plays this style of football, and you're exactly the sort of left back he needs. And you're going to develop here for a year, go and get promoted, go and win player of the year, go for it, wee man. Better players, you can maybe try and farm them into an English league, or the Austrian team that we've got a wee connection with. Or if we do sign somebody like Yang, maybe, like if we sign somebody like Yang, we should be in a position where like he's nowhere near the team, but we buy him and we loan him out straight away to somebody, and we maybe don't see him for a year or two. And then when he does come here, he gets a bit of an audition, and if he's all right or not, maybe there's a market already for him. Some people have seen him play. Kind of like the Bernabei situation, then it unfolds, you know. And imagine if we had in our left back, Bernabei would be beautiful transfer policy. It's just like money balling for Celtic, you know, sign a guy, play him a wee bit, didn't need him, didn't like him, loan him out somewhere, double, treble your money on him, happy days. If we had our left back where it wasn't just Taylor this whole time, that might have felt like overall a better handling of the thing. Would you bring back the reserve league? I heard that mentioned as well. I don't think that's the be all and end all of anything either, to be honest. I feel like you've got such a wider network of football. Reserve league is what, really? What benefit is that? The main benefit of that is it's local, really. Like, what are you gaining from that? The only reason you want something more local is because there isn't something currently there local, or the current local thing isn't good enough. But really, like, there's many more places to play football where you're not kind of hampered by any limitations of a reserve league, like, again, we've got that thing with that Austrian team. That's such a commonplace thing all across Europe, where you don't need to actually be in a football network group thing, where it can just be like there's a few clubs where you regularly send 3 guys on loan to Portugal. Like, remember, who was that team that we sent Mikey Johnson to? Victoria Guimarães. I don't think it's the same team Kobayashi went to, but, that kind of thing, there should just be wee clubs where, like, hey, we've got a centre mid, need one? Aye, we do. Brilliant. He'll be on the plane tomorrow, and you've got that kind of relationship with teams. It feels like Celtic are in Scottish football at times is very, like it treats itself like an island in a lot of this regard as well. So I do think when it comes to youth development, there's that kind of duality to have, because Liverpool are a great example. You just need to look at the likes of Connor Bradley, Curtis Jones. I know they signed Harvey Elliott from Fulham, but they've had other players like Liverpool. There's lots of teams in the Premier League that's the whole purpose of these facilities, is to produce your own guys. Like, imagine Ralston was Alistair Johnson. Like, imagine we were able, and that's enough. I hate saying that, because it's like Ralston's great, and like, I'm a big fan of him. But imagine that was the level Ralston came out the factory as. Same as Tierney, for example. Done it once, we've done it on occasion, down to probably natural talent found in the area, natural love of football, good coaches at the right times, and that kind of thing. Right circumstances, right players, been scouted at the right. We hear about all these things all the time. But imagine you could just like regularly, like, guys like that, and guys even like Scales, like even guys like that, they could just be produced by the academy. And it also means as well, see if you are like Bully Boy, and and there's like, I don't know, a guy that doesn't play for Celtic and he's really good at 14, 15, signing him is like even easier, because it's like, look at the facilities we've got here. Like, you will just become stronger, faster, quicker, develop to the maximum physical potential. Because for young players, as much as it does it does further paint into this whole footballers are like racehorses nowadays kind of thing that we mention on the channel from time to time. When players are growing up, when their bodies are developing, like, the physical attributes are kind of the most important thing to be dealing with. You do need to deal with like players having to continually adjust their coordination, because maybe they get heavier, bigger, longer legs, or like whatever. And I know a lot of people are done, they're growing by that, but you know what I'm saying, especially when we're talking about real youth players like 14 to 17. So you need to have, if like the incubation chamber, you need to have that ability to really harness those bulbs. And I don't think a reserve league helps with that. The facilities are the main thing, and then it's the thing like Darren O'Day's job coming into action, as well as there being, because we're looking at the squad now, right? Let's imagine Lennon Miller is in our academy. Where does he get in? Where does he get minutes? Ralston gets minutes, fine, right? These are guys that are more established, fine, but there needs to be a spot. We kind of mentioned this, I think, yesterday with Cummings and Kenny, and now they've got an opening. Finally, there's now like okay, there is minutes to be had. You will get as much as like, I totally back Rodgers on that they have to be good enough, but there has to then be, if they're in the frame to be good enough, like, they have to have an opening to be tested at some point. Because like Jota says, like everyone says, training and matches, not the same thing in any sense, We've kind of went off on a few wee tangents. I love it, but great thing with the live chat joining in. Look at Summers' situation right now. I think Summers has picked up another bad injury, but has he not? That's the sad thing about him. He's done very well. And again, yeah, like, is that maybe the point you're making with his injuries and not being at that Liverpool, that laboratory kind of environment, are the reason we keep losing the likes of Dokes, Kelly and Vata? There's little scope for them getting a chance when we keep signing imports to develop. But you've got to, it's a yin and a yang, pardon the expression, situation to be had here. But because like, you do need to accept that, like, really, when you examine everything, like, every team is involved in the food chain somewhere. and you need to be like, you do need to have an element of your squad that maximizes that to the best of your potential with the likes of Engels and Kuhns and Jotas and these types of players. But we're talking about losing the likes of these players, and I think it's down to availability in the squad, really, as much as anything. But I do think, like, when the offer comes in, because there's always going to be a crossroads point, you can do absolutely everything in the world to look after a player, to develop them, and all the rest of it, give them the best terms in the world. But there comes a point where they will get another offer at some point. And one thing that will be balanced up is, like, ultimately, where is the best position for me to be 3 years from now at the end of this contract? Is it to be here or to be there? And not just the squad availability sometimes, because again, you go to Liverpool, you're not expecting to get in the team, are you? What are you going there for? You're going there for the gain of training with a different caliber of player, you would probably accept for the most part. But it's also then the day-to-day care, facilities, what you're actually doing to be developed and to be maximized, you know? And we lose these types of guys because they don't really get that vibe when they maybe go on a visit and our club's trying to sign them. Let's go and visit the facilities. They show up and it's like, wow, you know? We would have that effect on if we are signing a player from Ross County or something like that, obviously, when they bring somebody like that to Lennoxtown. But again, like there's being the big fish in the small pond, but there's actually then just being a fish that could be in any waters. That's kind of what we're after, isn't it? Trying to maximize it, because Benfica, Ajax, all the contemporaries that we would want to associate ourselves with, less so maybe Salzburg, they're much more transfer active, but they firmly work on, you know, bringing through their own players, and their facilities are exceptional. Their coaching staff are, you know, second to none, and they really have the highest standards in there internally. And that's what we need to do. And you're only going to get better staff as well and retain better staff, because again, staff want to work with the latest and greatest tools. You don't want to work at Celtic and your expertise becomes outdated because technology moves on, techniques advance, and all your contemporaries are playing with different tools from you, you know? So there's so much to be said for the infrastructure developments. I think I've done an okay job of trying to keep some of it on point, but I just want a treble. Don't we all? Don't we all? Don't we all? And we kind of spoke about the Dundee game. We've not done score predictions. I guess we'll kind of get to that at this point. So score predictions for tonight with we had the squad on page there, sorry. So we'll come away from the squad and we'll look at the team for Dundee tonight. I think, yeah, I would maybe go with the Bayern team theory in the end, and maybe keep Hatate in another match here just to fine-tune with Ida as a forward a bit more. So I had McKeown on screen earlier, but I think this will be the team that will end up starting the match, and we're going to see a really strong bench. I don't think McKeown diminishes the bench at all. It does feel stronger with Hatate coming off the bench. I do accept that point from earlier, but I think, yeah, this will be the way it goes, and we'll see Ida move into the middle and all the rest of it. I think like we're going to come out the traps flying. Ida is going to be, in the best way possible, a bull in a china shop. He's going to be crashing through that defence. He's going to be getting one back over them from the last time, setting the record straight. And Brendan Rodgers is quite quick to point out that it was a tight game against Dundee last time, but we should have buried them. We should have put them 6 feet under. And that Ida has got all the motivation in the world to put the ball in the back of the net to make that happen. And really, the supporting cast here is full strength, isn't it? Really, behind that, you know, not saying he doesn't full strength, but really, we should be going after it. I could see a goal or two happening quite quickly in this game, and I think with Jota coming off the bench, with Schlupp coming off the bench, never mind if we do get a Kenny cameo or anything else coming into it, I think this will be a nice game of both halves. It is always one in the second half, like we always say here on the channel. So yeah, I'm going to, I'm forever the optimist, of course, but I'm on the same. I'm drinking the same tea as a lot of you guys. I'm going to go for 4-0 or 6-1. Wouldn't that be I like a 4-0, a 5-0. Oh, you could maybe tempt me on the 5-0. By the way, boo Cameron every time he gets the ball. Maybe rises to that, but maybe once he gets booked, or maybe get on his back or something. Brown Warriors kind of followed up on something. Celtic, yeah. But again, even if we could produce players like that as like the underbelly of the squad, you know, and then like all of the transfer budget goes on like 6 players for like different cycles or generations of the squad that are like the Moneyball players, you know, that buy for 5 million, sell for 25, buy for 10, sell for 30, you know, buy for 15, sell for 50, you know, that kind of thing. Red Bull airdrop would never work. That's a funny one. AJ to clobber Cameron in the first minute. Yeah, I can see AJ laying down a marker. Now that's been said. That's all been confirmed. I think you guys, 420 somewhere, McLaughlin P. I think I want to drink your tea today. We're going to go with 5-0 to the Hoops on this one for me. Adam Ida is probably going to be a hat-trick hero. I think, again, a few of us have said that. I've got that kind of feeling as well. It's going to be that kind of night. And I take Ida to be man of the match, to be the standout on the day. So, yeah, that's me. Me and McLaughlin P, as a few of you are going for it as well. Slabbering Cabbage in there as well with a 6-0. And Celtic, we can be optimistic. We've got the big green clean sheet machine, Kasper Schmeichel. And if this is the kind of team that we're playing out with, like, I think we're going to do A-okay, aren't we? No, we're not going to be too shabby at all. We move on from the January transfer window. We'll be back tomorrow. Probably not live. I will try and get that one recorded and then uploaded properly. But we'll do a reaction to the Dundee game as well as a Bayern Munich preview before then we come in to play Raith Rovers. And I'm sure we'll chat about the transfer window. I don't know what we do. I did a Champions League prediction. And it was actually quite fun to do. And I think there was some stuff that came in that was quite fun to look back on. I've not done that yet, and I'm quite tempted to record that this week. We maybe need to have that out, but before Bayern Munich, because then after Bayern Munich, who cares about the Champions League group stage predictions? So there'll be tons of content coming out over the channel over the next couple of days. If you haven't done so already, please do like and subscribe for more content like this. If you're going to the game tonight, I hope you have good fun. Of course, let me know your score predictions in the comment section. Who's your man of the match shouts for tonight as well, if you're watching this after we've been live. And yeah. Hail, hail, everyone, and Mon the Hoops.